they tend to be. You have grown-up children. So how has it been trying to settle two things? First of all, disagreements between you and the children, and then sibling rivalry. How have you been able to manage those two? Because we cannot say they don't exist. We won't be telling ourselves the truth if we say that siblings rivalry don't exist, and if we say children don't disagree with their parents. So was the disagreement, were they often? If they were not often, I'll put that question to that. If they were not often, how did you go about it that made it easy for them to just glide into gear with you whenever you say something or whenever you give an instruction?
Well, to start with, you can minimize sibling rivalry through the way you bring up your children right from the start. In our own experience, right from babyhood, as they are growing up to become conscious and they know themselves as brothers, sisters,
siblings, yeah.
We started telling them the importance of loving your brother, loving your sister. Well, it does not mean that they are not going to have disagreements.
Yes.
But when you continue a process of admonition, and you continue to explain and illustrate how important bonding is to them, then they are going to grow up to love themselves. If you have a family unit that is well knit together, where there are no extraneous influences that are coming in, for example, mistresses coming in to the picture.
Second wives.
Yes. These are the things that can disintegrate the family.
Okay.
But when you have a closely knit family, and for example, in our own home, we could argue about things.
Yes, I really like examples from your own home.
Oh, yeah.
But we don't fight.
Okay.
Nobody hits another. And all our 4 children, they have not fought physically once.
Wow.
In all the years that they were at home.
Not acceptable.
Yes, it's simply not acceptable. It's something that should not be heard. Not only did they not fight at home, they never fought in school.
Wow. That means even in the midst of other children.
Even in the midst of other children, there's no physical.
And what if they were angered to the point that they could not control themselves? Did you see them in that kind of
It never
position?
happened. It never happened. Yes, at times they get angry with one another. They just do it verbally. Yes, they do it verbally, and then we put them back in line.
In line.
Yes. So I think for bonding to happen, parents just need to continue to talk to those children and watch them. When you see a crack, something that seems to be going out of shape of what bonding should be, you should correct it immediately. You correct it immediately, and then you continue to bear this in mind as a father or a mother, and make sure that you continue to watch out. Now, the problem happens when parents neglect these things. For example, like she was saying, you need to live with your parents, and they need to be there physically, not just providing the money and all the resources. So when you are there, you can observe.
To do that a lot, because we say, I don't want my children to suffer the way I did. I don't want my children to go without the way I did. And so they make sure they make a lot of money, they make the money available, and in the process of making a lot of
then they ignore,
they neglect the children.
They neglect the children, and eventually they find that it's a loss situation.
When you were speaking about putting them right, I just remember the situation. My 2 younger ones, my children are spanned. They have 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
The family
only the
planning
2.
is very strong.
We have them in 2 generations. Okay. I was telling someone on Sunday, and the older ones said, "Oh, how are the children doing?" They're actually referring to their siblings because they have that age gap.
Yeah.
The 2 younger ones, they went out and then came back, and the younger one came to report, said, "Do you know that something happened?" And then my sister she laughed along with other people with what happened to me. And for us, that was great crime.
It is.
We had to call them and said, how would you laugh with other people at your brother?
Sibling.
Not acceptable, not at all. And then in little things that you could just take for granted. For instance, when the 2 older ones were growing, we buy a bottle of drink, and then they put, it's 1 straw in it. You call it turn by turn. The older one will sip for like 10 seconds and give it to the younger one.
Okay.
And I tell you, that simple act, it wasn't because we couldn't get 2 bottles of
course,
drink,
or 2 straws.
Or 2 straws, for that matter. What it brought for them was an understanding.
Yeah.
That, look, you take things turn by turn, you don't cheat.
Yes,
Your
how to
sibling,
cooperate.
and then you love.
How to cooperate with each
How
other.
to cooperate.
And you
with
don't
one
sip
another.
more than...
You don't sip more than your... And they were perfectly good with it.
Wow.
Now they're grown up.
Yeah.
And they feed
That has
off
stuck
one
with
another.
them.
You know, they have... the older one has an idea. He waits for his younger one. And the younger one just helps him, you know, to build it up. So those are the things, little things we do that would foster bonding.
Yeah,
and
reinforce.
Yes.
One funny thing is that our eldest son told me recently, he said when he was sharing a bottle of Coke with his younger brother, that he thought we couldn't afford it. That's why we bought just one bottle for them. Not knowing that it was just something put there deliberately so that they can... I knew that if they will not fight over this bottle of Coke,
it
then
will be easy.
Yes, it's usually when we are driving on the road and they are seated at the back.
Okay.
And if we don't hear any quarrel, like, give me my own.
Then you know.
And they did it perfectly well without any problem. So this is how parents can ingeniously devise. It doesn't have to be a bottle of Coke, but to devise other means by which to just bring your children together and make sure that they bond. And true to it, today they are so well bonded. They work together. They do everything together.
Wow, there is no animosity.
There is no animosity. There is no competition.
Wow, competition.
Nothing. Yes.
Competition.
That's another really, really remarkable thing. My children, like I said, they are 4, 3 boys and a girl, and they ride, but they build up, they take pride in the success
of others.
My eldest son, for instance, my second son, he wrote an exam, and when they are writing exams, maybe because of the age gap, he said, listen to me, you are my sounding board. And they ask me questions to prepare me. And then he listens to him, and then he comes and tells her, Mommy, actually he's so smart. And when another one passes his exams, he has A's, you see the joy.
Yeah.
They are not like saying, oh, I had a 2-2, he has a first class, or he has a 2-1, and then they take pride in the achievement of one another. So that competition or rivalry is just not there.
It's not there.
The most you can find is, oh, this person did this, I will aspire to do the same.
Yeah, or even better.
Or even better. And so you see them just like my elders who praise his younger one. The younger one was, did you know Adenka has all these connections? Do you know he's the best in his group? You know, and they just feed off each other.
Yeah.
And
that's really strong.
Yes.
That's really strong.
But
because
I must mention that there is a background to that. And that background is very important. The background is
you did
that
not
as
compare
they
them
are,
with one another.
That's point number 1. You don't compare them with one another, and don't have a favorite among them.
If you do, don't show it. Is it possible not to have?
Yeah, it's possible.
I think so.
It's possible.
Each person
If I've been having girl children, and then the boy comes along.
It's just a different relationship.
Yes.
Okay.
Not that
You don't
it has
have a
to
favorite.
be
If,
better.
if,
A
you see,
different
a lot of parents
relationship.
make a
I
mistake
like that.
by showing more love and affection
Favoritism.
for one child
more than
the other.
others.
That sets them on fire most of the time. So if you don't have a favorite, there's a way in which you make things so plain to them.
Okay.
What you do for one, you can also do for
the other.
When one misbehaves, he knows that he's been punished because he has done this wrong. But immediately he gets off that, you go back to your normal love relationship with him. So it is important for parents not to show favoritism. And I've seen several life examples where a father is treating a particular son better than the other one. And then you find that later in life they become enemies.
Yes.
Wow.
For life. Even to the point of death.
Wow.
They are unable to come back
it's one thing that
together.
ignites that fire.
Reconcile.
Yes.
So my next question is, you are going to both take turns at this. How has having conversations and settling disputes between both of you affected the children? You know, when we talk about fighting, quarreling, does it happen in front of the children? Does it happen when they're there? Or you try to shield them from it so they think mommy and daddy have a fabulous marriage all the time? And go first.
Well, you know, people talk about the theory and then the practice.
They are different things.
Yes. The acceptable theory
Yeah.
is that shield your children from all quarrels. But my own experience practically is, I mean, over the years, I have noticed that there are times something happens
Spontaneously.
between the two of us,
Yeah.
which I thought I need to address immediately. And they are there. In that wise,
is it that you were not patient enough to take it inside?
if I have to do it all over again,
yeah.
I will probably postpone
Okay.
all these things.
The
I think that's the
confrontation.
ideal thing.
Okay.
You postpone it.
Okay.
But again, there is the detriment of, are they going to understand what real life is? It also depends on what is the extent of the dispute. Is it just, for example, why did you put this here instead of there? Those are minor things.
Very minor.
Yes. So when it comes to fundamental issues that happens between couples,
Yeah.
I believe those ought to be shielded away from them. There are some very vital fundamental quarrels ought to be shielded from them. But my own experience is that there are so many everyday life things, so that they have come to see that these things don't go to the root of the relationship. For example, we argue about something now, the next minute we are laughing and talking about something else.
Oh, yes.
So it doesn't now threaten them. It doesn't threaten their inner feeling of security. They still know that the family is held together.
Yes.
But if I am to advise parents now, I would say shield the bulk of your disagreements from them. But again, don't let them have this feeling of utopia that life is just also rosy. By the time they see you argue and you resolve, they know that life is about disagreeing
from that
and then agreeing again.
Yeah.
So you just have to understand your family, know what type of disagreement you have with your spouse. We've never had any serious. The arguments are always about ordinary, mundane issues,
things,
you know, which they are all well acquainted
with.
They are acquainted with them. I have not noticed that it has affected them in any way.
Okay.
I think because they know that basically the family is still strong.
Yes.
It's not threatened.
So there's no
it's
threat.
still held together.
There's no threat.
You argue now, the next minute you're laughing
you're playing.
and they just see that as life.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Ma'am.
Yes. I tell people that what you tell your children, what you let your children, sometimes they are non-verbal. How,
and that's very true with African parents.
Oh, yes. If you set your children against your spouse, it's a big mistake. And that can affect that child for life.
Wow.
What most parents don't know is the mother has a quarrel with the father and then goes to the children and says, you know, your father is bad. He did this to me.
Trying to bring them to our side.
Or the father now says, your mother is useless. And the child is left in an unfortunate position. And he does not know who to follow. I mean, he loves his mother. He loves his father. And then he doesn't know who. Am I supposed to support my mother or support my father? So what I would tell parents is never, ever set your child against your spouse. Because the end result of it, I've seen it happen with relations. It's always a bitter thing.
That's sad.
And so just like you said, yes, we'll have altercations.
Yeah.
In fact, even amongst ourselves, when we're talking about political views now, I could have one position.
Of course.
My elder son could have his own position. My husband will have his own position. We disagree to agree.
Of course.
At the end of the day, we are family.
Because at the end of the politicians don't even know who you are.
That's an example. You know? We agree, we disagree to agree. We remain firm. And once a child knows that, come what may, my father lost my mother, my mother lost my father, that child is good to go. He's safe.
Basically, what I am trying to say is that it should be a taboo for parents to try to, talk ill of one another before their children, because children don't see the way you see and they don't believe the way you believe. For you to keep the family together, you must make sure that you are not portraying one child as bad to another child or one parent as bad to another parent. If you have quarrels, if you have arguments among yourselves, just let it roll and at the end of the day, resolve it and let life continue. That's the best way to make sure that the family bonds together.
I hope you've been having fun as much as I have on this episode of the show. And I hope you stay with us, because when we come back, we'll be discussing spending quality time with your children and as well as bonding with your spouse. Don't go away. We'll be right back.